Okay, well, without further ado, I'm going to kick off today's webinar. Again, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. I hope you're all comfortable. You got something to eat or maybe a warm drink on this cold day. Thanks again for being here. We know that your time is valuable, so I'm going to keep today's session relatively short, and I'll be wrapping up in just about 30 minutes. But before we dive in, a bit of housekeeping. We're going to be recording today's session, and it'll be available on our website after our time together. So you'll be able to receive a link to that webinar in an email following today's session, and you can share that with friends and colleagues. But to make sure that we get a good quality recording, can I please ask that you place yourself on mute and turn off your camera so we can get the best kind of quality audio for the recording. And if you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to use the chat function on your right-hand side and direct your comments towards our producer, Matthew Mizzi.
Yep. Sorry, guys. Ryan, I might just cut in there if that's all right.
Sure.
So if you do have some questions at all, just in the chat function that Zoom allows, if you could, down the bottom where you can allocate where you're sending the message to, if you could click everyone and just make sure you have me selected. That way, if you have any questions, I'll be the only one seeing them. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Matt. So let's dive in. Great. Quick introduction to me. My name is Rowan Thamba. I am the head of content here at Presentation Studio. I've designed this webinar to hopefully show you how taking a strategic approach to communications can help your organization navigate the complexities of a post-COVID-19 world. Today's session was largely built to help. That's my goal today. I really hope that the principles and the ideas in this session provide a framework through which you can develop communication efforts and solve some of the business complexities caused by the pandemic. So that's who I am, and that's why I'm here. Let's get started. So I think it's fair to say that the events that have taken place over the last couple of months across the world have been completely unprecedented. That is, unless you're Bill Gates, who in 2015 gave an eerily prophetic TED Talk that spoke to the threat of a global pandemic and urged us all to be more prepared. Bill said that if we didn't get more prepared, our communities, our businesses, our economies, and health systems would not be able to handle the effects. And unfortunately, we didn't listen to Mr. Gates. The long-term impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on economies and societies, both domestically and abroad, is still largely unknown. And while the initial shock seems to be over, our lives will certainly be marked by an obvious schism: life before and after the coronavirus. The virus has been a great catalyst of change, and while businesses undergo large-scale changes all the time, rarely do all businesses go through these changes at the same time. While the impact of this widespread shock is still largely uncertain, what remains clear is that if your organization is waiting for business to continue as usual, you might be left waiting a while. The extent of the change largely depends on each country's priorities. Currently, the world is engaging in a delicate balancing act between economic and public health concerns. Countries that move toward protecting the economy are going to have a vastly different long-term effect to countries that move toward protecting public health. Either scenario will cause a dramatic change in demand, consumer tastes, and lead to a restructuring of society that will mean majority of businesses will never go back to what we previously defined as normal. A new normal will need to re-emerge. And today, we're going to unpack how strategic communication is an important tool every organization needs in order to remain resilient as they transition through change and re-emerge into the new normal. In moments of unclear transition, such as COVID-19, employees, suppliers, and customers are all looking for the same thing: assurance. They need to know that the business that they work for, that they buy from, that they supply to, are handling the shift and how these changes are going to affect them. Developing considered and strategic communication mechanisms during times like this is essential for maintaining your brand and establishing trust within with some of your most important stakeholders. Whatever the new normal may be for you and your organization, ensuring your internal and external stakeholders trust you will guarantee that you've reached the other side. For over a decade, we at Presentation Studio have helped organizations communicate more effectively across multiple changes in technology. We've seen the rise of mobile, social media, and more recently, cloud-based services. We've supported multiple organizations also throughout the global financial crisis of 2008. And over the years, as the channels and the technology through which we communicate have changed. However, the core principles of empathy, storytelling, and strategic thinking haven't. In fact, in a socially isolated world, they are becoming more crucial than ever. Today, we're going to be walking through the 3 phases every organization will journey through as they respond to the events of this global pandemic. The first phase, addressing immediate challenges, is dedicated to addressing the pressing challenges that pose the greatest threat to business continuity in the short term. This involves making hard, informed decisions about processes, technology, partner organization, and employees. The main goal of the second phase, preparing for the new normal, is the creation of a specific plan to return the business back to scale as quickly as possible. This involves evaluating what internal processes need to change or stay the same. The final phase, establishing a new direction, is where an organization spends the time reimagining the next normal and considering how they might respond to pending shifts in the regulatory or competitive environment. We're going to spend the rest of our time together unpacking these phases and understanding the role your marketing and internal comms teams can play in helping the business transition smoothly through to this new normal. So here we go. Phase 1, addressing immediate challenges. The first goal of this phase is to establish business continuity as quickly as possible. This is a pretty obvious first step, but it has different implications for different organizations. For some companies, this means restructuring cash flows, maintaining already existing online channels, and lowering costs. For other companies, this could mean more drastic measures such as redundancies or establishing brand new sales channels or major restructuring of product and/or service offerings. Regardless of the scale of the problem, the ability to successfully make it through this phase is largely determined on the ability of the organization to make good decisions accurately and quickly. Utilizing your strategic communications resources effectively can actually help your organization do just that. Good decisions can be made more accurately and effectively when you have access to the right information. When it comes to gathering information, communication specialists should be able to help you facilitate internal discussions effectively. Hearing from staff across organizations can be helpful for improving organizational agility and spurring innovation in decision-making. Organizing digital town halls is a great way to foster these discussions and surface these ideas. It can also help build buy-in and trust with employees so that they feel like they are directly contributing to the organization's decision-making process. Communication specialists can help advise on the best way to host a digital town hall and also help gather the necessary insight from your people to make decisions more effectively. How a decision is communicated is just as important as what the decision is or why it's been made. As content and channel experts, your strategic communication practitioners should be able to ensure that you communicate your decisions to relevant stakeholders in the most effective way possible. Social distancing regulation caused a dramatic shift to online forms of communication. Conversations that might have happened in person have now most likely been moved to online channels. That's why this is a webinar and not a seminar. When informing stakeholders of delicate information based on decisions that have been made, it's crucial that you consult your communication experts to ensure that the messages are being received as efficiently and as accurately as possible. Whether it's discussion aimed at your customers, employees, suppliers, or other key stakeholders, it's extremely important to match the right message with the right channel. Otherwise, you risk the clarity of your message, or worse, losing trust with your audience. This could mean you need to establish new internal and external channels, which your communication experts can advise you based on what's best for your target stakeholder. When it comes to choosing the right channel for internal stakeholder communications, here are 3 quick tips. Number 1, choose a channel that your stakeholders care about. If you know that your employees never read the company newsletter, don't announce the new work from home policies there. Take your message to the channels you know your audience are going to be. Number 2, create content that is optimized for the channel. Consider what kinds of content consider what kinds of content your chosen channel lets you host. If there's an opportunity for video on your internal intranet, your employees are more likely to engage with that rather than a written statement. Number 3, consider the feedback process. If your message requires a response from your audience, ensure that your call to action clearly states the channel you would prefer them to contact you through. After you've done that, ensure that that channel is ready to receive their feedback. While tough decisions need to be made quickly and efficiently during this stage is also incredibly important for building trust with your key stakeholders. It's crucial to surviving the ups and downs of the next phase of your organization. Now, building trust doesn't mean avoiding making decisions that negatively affect your stakeholders, but what it does mean is being open and transparent as you can while you make those decisions. The way that your organization makes decisions should inspire trust within your people and your customers, no matter if those decisions are negative or positive. Their certainty in your organization and the way it communicates during a crisis will ensure that your organization weathers the storms of this next phase effectively. So phase 2, preparing for the new normal. The second phase is focused on the creation of a plan to build the business back to scale as quickly as possible. We are finding that most organizations are in this phase at the moment. Organizations of all sizes across all industries have suffered a reduction in the scale of operation due to a decrease in overall demand within the Australian economy. Here are some results from a report released by the Department of Education, Skills and Employment on the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on the Australian business. As you can see, 67% said that there was a lower demand for their goods and/or services. 37% had cash flow struggles, and over a third of Australian organisations are being forced to change the way they do business. As socially distancing restrictions ease, there's a real need to ensure that the business has a clear return back to operating scales that they were prior to the crisis. Strategic communications, again, can play a crucial role in helping organisations return to scale. In this phase, we see that there is both an internal and external focus. The internal focus involves communicating the new ways your business will be operating as a result of COVID-19. This also includes the ways in which projects that can still go ahead in a socially isolated world can be optimized for digital platforms that they will now be communicated through. The external focus involves this role of strategic communication in efforts to help build on market share during these uncertain times. Let's have a look at internal projects. Internal projects within the organization will more likely need to be rearranged to some degree. Some projects activities will be fast-tracked, some will be new, some will be cut because they're no longer relevant, and some will continue the same or maybe slightly amended. To make things simpler, we're going to separate potential activities into new and remaining. New projects include those that have been initiated or fast-tracked as a result of COVID-19. These projects are at the beginning of the new ways that your organization might be considering working. Once a strategy has been put in place, whether out of necessity or in pursuit of a new competitive advantage, these new ways of working are likely going to need to be communicated to the wider organization. Internal processes will change, and retraining materials are crucial to ensuring employees can adapt to these newer processes effectively. Recently, we've helped a lot of companies develop training materials for their staff, both on and offline. We've had many discussions with clients as they begin to lay the groundwork on how best to approach training their employees in these new ways of working within their organization. Here are a couple of tips while developing an internal training program. Firstly, be clear on the objectives and how you want to measure them. The future of your business returning to scale depends on your employees understanding and adopting these new processes. Make sure that you are clear on what they need to know and how you plan to measure the effectiveness of their training. 2, consider your audience and how they will engage with the content. Your employees might be working from home. They might be back at the office. You need to ask the question of how do you want your audience to engage with the content? Will they do it at their own pace, or will they get a set time to complete it? This will affect how you create that content. And finally, number 3, pick the right content for the right platform. Personally, I've seen clients ask for text-based ebooks to be added to their online learning platforms when the same learning platform is great for supporting video. Considering the right content for the right platform is about creating an exciting user experience that helps to effectively train your staff. During this time, we've been working with our clients to embed interactive PowerPoint presentations into e-learning platforms. And this allows them to complete the information and complete questionnaires at the end of a learning module to ensure that participants have understood the content. This has been really helpful in helping managers ensure participation and comprehension of the materials. Remaining projects are those that are being left unaffected or that need to change maybe slightly as a result of the pandemic. While the channels and methods of delivery might change, some projects can still continue in a socially distant world and play an important role in driving the organization back to scale. For example, video conferencing platforms such as Zoom and Skype for Business can still allow you to give pitch presentations to potential investors or new clients. While presenting online is similar to presenting in person, you will need to alter the way you present and the content materials you use to ensure that you connect with the same level of effectiveness you would do if you were in the room. Whether you are updating an internal training program from in-person to online or developing an infographic summary to send as a follow-up to your pitch presentation, when it comes to remaining projects, there may be a need to reappropriate information into new content types across multiple new channels in order to better engage your audience. Lean on the expertise of your communication experts to help you work out whether you need a pre-read or post-deck summary, and how you can adapt your presentation to ensure it still runs smoothly, even via a video conferencing platform. Strategic communication efforts can also help to build your organization back to scale by establishing an increase in market share while competition for advertising is low. There are 4 key benefits of continuing to market during a recessionary period. Number 1, reduce noise level. We are officially in a recession, and it's likely that your competition has reduced their spend on marketing because they need to focus on addressing the immediate concerns of phase 1. This can reduce the noise in your product or service market and allow you to be the loudest voice. Number 2, project corporate stability. By continuing to advertise in the current market, you are showing and letting your customers know that things are okay. This can help build future trust with them. Number 3, marketing efforts are cheaper. Each dollar you spend on marketing can go further at the moment because less organizations can currently afford to do so. This will help establish a greater brand awareness, which could lead to an increased leverage market share. Number 4, customer research. We often study our customers when things are going well, but you can learn just as much from your customers when things aren't going well. Understanding how they react to these uncertain times help you gauge their level of trust for your brand and also help to inform future planning and strategy. Investing time into increasing your market share now will help to ensure that your organization returns to scale quicker. Make sure you consider your audience, and if you're venturing into new marketing channels, whether it be social media or online advertising, make sure you understand how your audience interacts with those channels. It will help you craft a message that resonates. If you endeavor to make the most of this time with your marketing efforts, ensure that you rely on your company's core values. The priority of this phase is developing a plan to help the business return back to scale in the most efficient way. But the real challenge of this phase is managing the tension between allocating resources in the case that there are between allocating resources toward the future scale of the business versus reserving resources in case there are any more immediate concerns. This is why trust needs to be established in the previous phase with stakeholders. It will ensure that when it comes to resourcing decisions, they trust you to make the right decision. Communication experts can also play a key role in helping ensure strategic messaging surrounding a decision is clear and transparent. Once you've identified the opportunities for building the business back to scale, it's time to reimagine what the next normal could look like for your organization, which leads us to the phase 3, establishing a new direction. At this point in the journey, you should be starting to spend less time on addressing the immediate issues and more on finalizing the plans established in the previous phase. When it comes to establishing a new direction, there's a need to understand where the organization has come from and what opportunities are ahead. However your organization finds itself reimagining the future, there is an important story to tell. After all the plans have been made, the focus needs to be on setting the vision forward and ensuring that you can bring your people and your customers along for that journey. Developing a singular foundational narrative is crucial to establishing trust within these stakeholders as they follow you into the uncertain new normal. Strategic communication experts can help you craft a narrative that holds people together and provides a sense of shared identity while simultaneously conveying the organizational strategic objectives. Here are 6 key elements that all great corporate narratives need to have. Number 1, clarity. Your corporate story should be easy to understand. Try to write it with the least amount of jargon as possible. Try using vivid and everyday language when you construct it. This will help your transparency with your key stakeholders you are trying to reach. Number 2, it has to be concise. Don't make it too complicated. Keep it simple. You don't need a large screenplay. Try and keep the story to no more than a page and a half. Number 3, consider your brand identity. Make sure you inject your organization's personality into the narrative and ensure that you establish the right tone for what has happened and what is going to happen. Listening to your audience before you put pen to paper will help you do just that. Number 4, the story needs to be foundational. This narrative should create enough of a foundation that other communication efforts and other communication strategies and stories can be built. Key influencers within your organization should be able to take your story and personalize it for themselves so they can communicate it to their teams. Number 5, wide appeal. Make sure that the story resonates with new and old audiences, both internal and external audiences. Your audience should be able to see themselves in your story and identify with it on a deep level. Finally, credibility. By balancing the facts and figures with storytelling techniques, you can ensure that you engage your audience as a credible market leader in a very uncertain world. Research has indicated that where there are high levels of environmental uncertainty and the fear and risk aversion of employees are increased, so too does the complexity, volume, and robotic tone of communications. So when stakeholders are actually seeking clarity, focus, and reassurance, they're often getting the exact opposite. So ensuring that you have a clear foundational corporate story can anchor your people to what your company values and the direction that you're headed. Okay, so it's time for a recap. So here's where we started. The coronavirus pandemic has been a global, cultural, and economic shock. The events of the last couple of months will change the way over a third of all Australian companies do business. There will be a new normal. Strategic communications will have an important role to play in helping your organizations navigate through this new normal. The first phase was addressing immediate challenges. This is largely based around the ability to make decisions quickly and effectively. Strategic communication efforts can help by providing a way to gather information quickly and make more accurate decisions, thus allowing organizations to become more agile as they navigate a fast-changing world. The second phase was about preparing for the new normal. This is largely based on creating a plan to help the business return to scale. Strategic communication efforts can help the business return to scale by supporting the adoption of new internal processes, reappropriating remaining project content across different channels, and by strategically increasing the organization's market share. The final phase was centered around establishing a new direction. This was based around the need for organizations to establish the next normal. Strategic communication efforts can help by developing a singular foundational narrative that helps to establish trust with key stakeholders as the organization moves forward into the new normal. Underlying all the tactical advantages of engaging strategic communication resources to combat the negative effects of COVID-19 is trust. Doing communication well during this time helps your key stakeholders trust you in an environment that's filled with fear and anxiety. These are challenging and unprecedented times, and with things constantly changing, the future is still very much uncertain. There is no use trying to predict exactly what's going to happen, but I believe that by staying true to your organization's values and remaining consistent with your messaging across all stakeholder groups, you will ensure that in all this uncertainty, the people that matter most trust you. So that's it. Thank you so much for making the time to be with us today. I really hope you managed to get something from our session today. We live in strange times, and there is no doubt about that. I hope that the information presented today gives you some ideas on how to better take advantage of your communication and marketing resources. And if you'd like to ask any questions about the material presented today, or if you'd like to chat about the Presentation Studio services, please don't hesitate to reach out. We are here to help however we can. And, we've been partnering with organizations for over a decade to help them tell their stories. And in an isolated world, these stories are just as important. That's why we'd like to offer you, everyone in this webinar, a free insight session with one of our content strategists to help you on your journey of navigating your new normal. During this session, you'll be able to sit down with a content strategist and understand the phase that your organization might currently be in, brainstorm personalized and practical ways that you can take a strategic approach to your communication efforts in FY21. You'll receive an email following today's session that shows you how you can take advantage of this offer that's worth over $500. So once again, thank you for your time. I've been Rowan Thambar, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks.